Good evening, good morning, good day, fellow viewers. I welcome you to the fourth session of the Afghan Association of Ontario initiative to increase awareness on racism, discrimination, and Islamophobia. This program is an initiative of the Afghan Association of Ontario and is aired with the collaboration of the Government of Canada, who is partially funding the program. In this program, we bring subject matter experts who know about the subject and are going to let us know about how this thing can be combated. And at the same time, sometimes we'll bring some people who will share their stories of how they dealt with, how much they faced this triangle of evil of racism, discrimination, and Islamophobia, and they want to share their stories with us. So today I welcome our guest, Brother Taha Ghayyur, who is the Executive Director of Justice for All Canada and the Vice President of Sound Vision. Brother Taha, welcome to the session.
Thank you for having me on this wonderful program today.
You are welcome. Dear viewers, this program is very important, not just for the Muslim community in Canada, but for all minorities who are facing racism and discrimination. So I will appreciate if you can share this on your social media pages so that more and more people, not only the minorities in Canada, but also the mainstream Canadians, become aware of this situation, so that in one way or another we can reduce the negative impact of this triangle of evil in the Canadian society. Brother Taha, we will go straight to the subject. So in addition to what I just said, I know you for many years now, and you have been active and working with different organizations. I would appreciate if you could share with the viewers a little bit about yourself.
Well, thank you for that opportunity. I mean, there's really not much to share. I've been involved essentially with various aspects of community building, community work for about now 20-something years, alhamdulillah. I have been involved with DAWANET on the board and in other capacities, which is an organization that also organizes Muslim Fest, which is an award-winning festival that happens every year, alhamdulillah, in Mississauga, and also runs TorontoMuslim.com, Canada Zakat program, and so on. Other than that, I have been involved with human rights advocacy work for global minorities, which I'm still associated with for the past good 10 plus years through various initiatives. And then for about 2 years, I was also serving as executive director for ISNA Canada. So yeah, that's a bit of background myself. Every day is a new day, learning from other wonderful community people, community leaders, and advocates like yourself.
Well, yeah, I think ISNA is the place where we first met a few years ago, and I know how effective you were, and I think you have developed a following in the country, perhaps. So, and we appreciate your time, from your busy schedule to be with us and with the viewers to share your expertise and your knowledge and your understanding of this triangle. I usually refer to simplify it in this triangle of evil, I think. Instead of Islamophobia, people could add anything: anti-Semitism, hatred, whatever it is, but there is racism, discrimination, and it manifests itself in the form of hatred by one group against another group. So that, and I think it's incumbent on us to do whatever we can in order to combat it and to reduce it. So if I may ask you, in your experience and assessment, how big of an issue is racism, discrimination and Islamophobia?
Well, thank you for asking that question, and I really like your that triangle that model that you
triangle of evil.
Exactly, and exactly the triangle of evil. And the space that I work in, actually, before I get into specifically the answer that you're looking for, the space that I work in is, interestingly, we talk about another sort of evil triangle or triangle of evil, which is at a global level. It's the triangle of terrorism, war, and Islamophobia. And sadly, you can see that play out in so many countries that have been completely devastated, thanks to wars led by Western imperial countries and imperialism that have completely devastated, thanks to and you can see that model play out: war, terrorism, and Islamophobia. At a local level, I think this model that you're referring to absolutely is applicable. So the question is how big of a problem Islamophobia is? And sad reality is that it is an issue that is getting worse and worse. And of course, there are a lot of things we can talk about why. A lot has to do with the emboldening of governments that are run by white supremacists, hate mongers. In the United States, we saw that under Trump's administration. We are seeing that across Europe. We are seeing that in India with the BJP, the Hindutva ideology that is causing havoc to 200 million Muslims. So it is, at the end of the day, minorities that are that discriminated against, that get dehumanized, demonized, and of course targeted for their belief or color or caste or whatever it may be. So in our context, of course, as we are aware, that there have been statistics now that are showing from the recent survey from Stats Canada hearing, for instance, 71% rise in Islamophobia in the past 1 year alone. And there's so many more that I'm sure you're aware of that you can share as well with us. But I want to actually bring our audience attention to a few specific stats that I want to share with you that are from various sources. And the conclusion of all these stats, when I can finish reading out those stats, will be one simple answer or one simple conclusion. So here are a couple of those stats. 46% of Canadians have an unfavorable view of Islam, more than for any other religious tradition. 56% Canadians believe that Islam suppresses women's rights. More than half of people living in Ontario feel mainstream Muslim doctrines promote violence. 52% of Canadians feel that Muslims can only be trusted a little or not at all. 42% of Canadians think discrimination against Muslims is mainly their fault. And 47% Canadians support banning headscarves in public compared to 30% Americans. And 51% support government surveillance of mosques, as well as 55% Canadians think that problem of Islamophobia is overblown by politicians and media. So, my friends, if you look at all these stats, there's one thing in common, and that is almost 1 out of 2, or 50% of Canadians, have a problem with Islam or some aspect of Islam or some aspect of Muslims in Canada. And that is very scary and very serious. And that, as you know, is playing out in the daily lives of Muslims, either in the form of violent Islamophobia or in systemic forms of Islamophobia, which are policy level, government level policies that are hindering or bringing obstacles to the community at the community level or at the individual level of the Muslim community in Canada.
Well, thank you, Brother Taha, for sharing the information. I was just watching a program on CBC the other day, and they were saying that yes, in the past 2 years, hatred events that have been reported events of hatred have increased. But what surprised me was that yes, there was a 72% increase in Islamophobia, reported Islamophobia, there was a 68% increase in reported anti-Semitism. But what surprised me most was that there was a 64% increase of hatred against the Catholics.
Interesting.
So obviously, looking at it historically, Canada, despite the fact that relative to other countries, it most probably is a very open society. It is a multicultural society, and more people embrace multiculturalism and pluralism in Canada. It still has the dark aspects of its history with the Indigenous people, with the internment camps of the Japanese during World War II, and with the residential schools, for example, and so many other things. But relatively, I would still characterize that Canada is a work in progress, and it is improving. And with our help, I think it can become much better.
Absolutely.
And I think this program that the Afghan Association has initiated, maybe it's a very tiny little bit infinitesimal, but I think it will still help. And if more and more programs like this, not just by the Muslim communities, but by all other minorities come to combat it, perhaps we can make a big dent in that situation and change the statistics.
Very true.
Yeah, my next question will be that you are a community activist. You have worked with many different organizations. At the grassroots level, what do you hear? How do people react to it? Do they experience it? Do they know about the kind of statistics that you just mentioned and I mentioned, or people just are not aware of it?
Yeah, it's interesting. So if you talk about, of course, Muslim community in particular, for many, they do face it. Now, it doesn't have to be overt. It could be something that is, hidden, something that is subtle. And Muslims do experience it. So, my kids play, my son plays in a professional baseball league, for as a teenager. Locally, and it's a very much a white-dominated game, as we know, for instance, and we see the subtle, ways that he faces, and we as parents face discrimination. This is a very small example. You can ask anybody who is in a lot of these leagues, they face that. So same thing can apply to many other spaces that Muslim communities in, or even people of color in Canada are. So yes, people who are more visibly Muslim, more visibly a minority, they are facing it, and you do hear it, we hear it all the time. And from very, very simple things to the way, for instance, you are treated at the border while crossing the border, or coming back to Canada even, or as simple as going to a grocery store and the way a clerk, a cashier actually treats you versus a person who is next in line who doesn't happen to be a Muslim. So we do hear that quite regularly. Now, we have also seen, as you're aware, of course, we have also seen the worst forms of Islamophobia play out. And I myself was there with Dawanet team back in 2017 in the Quebec City, where we witnessed the horrific impact of mass shooting at a Quebec City mosque, that left 17 orphans, 6 widows, and of course 6 brothers who fell and who died. We till this day, 5 years later, we see the impact and the trauma of it. I'm sure, like many of us, have been to London, Ontario, since last year a few times.
The Afzal family,
right? Unbelievable. 4 members of an ideal Canadian Muslim family just walking down the street and just basically run down by a hate monger. We have been working with the family, talking to the family, and we can see the impact it has and the fear it has caused in the Canadian and Toronto Muslim community, for instance. So yes, we see it quite a lot, and it's getting more and more overwhelming, sadly.
As Executive Director of Justice for All Canada, in your opinion, what can these community organizations do or what they ought to do in order to combat this? Like what are some tools at their disposal or that they should acquire those tools in order to fight it?
Yeah, I think this is an excellent point. So first of all, combating Islamophobia should become a priority for every organization. You know, it's not just a battle for NCCM or a civil society organization. It should not be just a battle for just one or two organizations or justice for all at a global level. It is, and it should be every organization and every masjids and every MSA's primary goal, meaning that regardless of what you're doing, and regardless of whether you're providing, let's say, food to shelter homes, whether it's a food bank or providing other forms of services, maybe translation services for new immigrants, settlement services, whatever it may be that you're doing, you need to figure out a way how you can utilize your platform, your organization, your service to combat Islamophobia. That's number one. Which means that you and I need to become proactive and start talking about Islamophobia. Number two is to allocate funds. That, as they say, put your money where your mouth is. If you're not going to invest in where the funds right now and support is critically needed in Canada for the Canadian Muslim community and for people of color and other minorities, then you're not going to the money's not going to fall from the sky. You have to invest in your own communities, anti-Islamophobia initiatives, interfaith initiatives, diversity building initiatives. And number three is to start cooperating and working with interfaith, multi-faith organizations. That we have to become more open with the wider community. We know that Canadians are kind, gentle, loving people by far compared to many European countries and American countries, and America, for instance, and European countries. But yet, Islamophobia is showing the worst forms, of expression in Canada. Why? Because partly because, in addition to the state-sponsored Islamophobia in many cases and the systemic problems, we as Canadians are not doing, almost 2 million of us are not doing a good job of relating to and networking with the wider community. So every organization should have a mandate to develop interfaith dialogue and interfaith and multi-faith dialogue. Number four, I would say, is to ensure that we develop partnerships with all levels of government, municipal, provincial, and federal, that are going to help us fight all forms of hate, including Islamophobia. And that has to come naturally. That requires that you and I proactively go and actually develop those with the city councils or councillors, to any allies who are there who are willing to help us. Another sixth, I would say, is to empower, support Muslim youth in general and Muslim youth initiatives, MSAs, adopt their programs, support their programs, because they are the ones, not me necessarily, but as my children and our children, who are going to be the frontline, defenders. And they have better communication skills. They are more equipped, and believe it or not, they have definitely much better relationships in society than we have. And they're the ones whom we need to equip. They're the ones whom we need to actually ensure that we are supporting and promoting and training them to actually combat all forms of hate, essentially. And the last but not least is use your platform, whether it's social media or your center, to address Islamophobia from all sorts of angles. From the angle of being a Muslim who's experiencing it, but also for the benefit of wider community, as a support as well as for education, and to simply raise awareness about how to combat Islamophobia if you are a Muslim dealing with it, how to combat Islamophobia, if you are an ally in the wider community.
Very good. Thank you very much for. I would like the viewers, as you see, we have a subject matter expert with us. If you have any comments, any questions, please put them in the chat, and I think he will be ready to answer and to shed some light on these issues. Brother Taha, one thing you mentioned, and that was, I will characterize it, the politics of divisions. The politics of division, which is populism, is referred to as populism. And one reason that the hatred against minorities is increased is because populism has also increased. And in every society where populism has increased, it is a very decisive way of politics. The hatred against minorities have also increased. So in that respect, you just refer to indirectly, but I think, what do you suggest that these minority groups, especially interfaith communities, can come together and fight it, not just the manifestation of hatred, but the root cause of hatred, which is really populism and the politics of division?
Well, that's an excellent question, and you know, there's so much work that needs to be done in this area because, as we know, it's become so pervasive. And I think, first of all, we need to leverage the power of coalition building. As a community, we're not good at it. Within the community, there is no concept of working. Well, I won't say there's no concept. It's getting better, but we don't have a formal, body, for instance, that brings us together and under one umbrella, for instance. And I'm not saying that's always needed, but at the least, we should have much better networking within the community, and more importantly, outside the community. Because what will surprise us is once you start leading a cause, whatever it may be, especially on the front, anti-hate front and anti-Islamophobia front, you will find allies, and they're waiting for you to knock their door. And unfortunately, we are not doing justice. We are not just doing justice to them, and we are really wasting resources. So number one is to develop a coalition or just be part of coalition. There are many anti-war coalitions at the international level. Yeah. Locally, there are some wonderful organizations that are working on anti-hate, anti-discrimination policies, anti-racism. There's a lot of those wonderful organizations. So connect with them, work with them as a coalition. Number two, tap into resources within the community and especially outside the community. And we know that the government offers anti-racism grants, anti-discrimination grants, and anti-Islamophobia grants now to work on fighting Islamophobia, for instance. And the last, or a couple more points being that I think to really take these people head on, we need to, number one, expose these people, expose the people and how fickle their ideology is, and to show to Canadians how harmful it is to the very fabric of diversity and fabric of society. This very poisoned ideology is, and how challenging it can make our lives as citizens if we continue to just keep brushing it aside and keep ignoring it. So directly exposing hate mongers and get them banned, those organizations that are openly white supremacists, especially, and others who are going around hate mongering, they need to be, of course, banned. So legislatively, there needs to be action. And the last but not least, I'll say, is that every one of us and every organization today has these beautiful platforms like yours. We have now social media, we have Zoom, we have TV channels, alhamdulillah, and we have our newsletters. We have all sorts of opportunities, and of course physical events and physical forums, where we need to use those forums to promote in creative ways dialogues, creative expression, arts, culture, because we know through various forms of there's been several studies in the past that show that art and creative expression is one of the most potent ways of fighting hate, because it connects people to pure humanity. It connects people to their spirituality at times, and it connects people to what as a community we're all about, to their sense of belonging and their identity. And that's when we start breaking the barriers that are artificially constructed by society and especially by hate mongers. And I'll just add one more thing, which I think Canadian organizations need to do more, Muslim organizations especially, in order to fight such level of hate, is to be more and more service oriented. The more you provide service to the Muslim community and especially to the wider community, the more we're going to open hearts of others to show them that the Islam, in fact, any faith, Islam in particular, is about serving others, is about helping and uplifting others, about adding value to others, and whether it's Muslim or non-Muslim, without any discrimination.
Well, thank you very much. That was excellent. I hope the viewers who are currently watching and those who will be watching the recording will benefit from these insights that you shared with them. I have two short questions, and then we can end this program. One of them is related to individuals. When an individual experiences a form of discrimination, whether it's hatred, Islamophobia, or racism, what do you recommend that they should do? I will just also add, I had an interview with two people from the law enforcement about 3 weeks ago. They gave the advice and said that, well, take as much documentation as you can, but don't try to be a vigilante and a hero. If it is a dangerous situation, try to leave as soon as you can and don't put yourself in harm's way. But independent of that documentation and reporting, what do you suggest in terms of educating them so that they can be stronger, or whatever you think that they should
do? Excellent, and really much needed. So definitely, I would refer to, I would go back to, I would say there at least, 3 or 4 hours, 3 hours, let's say. Number one is what you just said, actually, is to record. We don't realize the importance of recording, and as you said, in a very safe, as much as possible, safe way, so that we are not getting ourselves in trouble. But alhamdulillah, everybody has phone nowadays. You can record as much as you can. You can record. At the least, you can document and write exactly what happened right at that time as much as possible, so that you don't forget after that incident. Recording is very important as an evidence, really, more than anything else. Number two is report. There have been studies, I'm sure you're all aware, or some of you may be aware, that according to some stats, it shows about half, and others, they say basically 70%, like 63%, let's say 66% of crimes never get reported. Hate crimes never get reported. And our community is really, really far when it comes to embracing the idea of reporting, because we think, oh, it just happened to me once, so what's the big deal? But everything counts, because this is why these stats are matter, because of these stats, and because of recording and reporting is how the Canadian government or even police decides to take action at a systemic level. So your reporting is very important. So you can actually report to NCCM, which is National Canadian Council of Muslims. You can report to, there are specifically and now hate crime hotlines as well, depending on which region of Canada you're in. So look for that. Definitely make sure you report. And it would be worth reporting to even hotlines, the Muslim hotlines, whether it's Nasiha or Nisa helpline for women and so on. So I would say definitely do that. And the last but not least is to ensure that you take time to heal from any, God forbid, any hate crime you ever experienced, because it really can traumatize you, and it can traumatize you for a very long time. So take whatever professional help, mental health, support you need. Make sure you take that counseling therapy as much as possible and as needed, basically.
Well, thank you very much. And the last question I have is, you know that the Jewish community, which is more experienced in this regard than the Muslim community, they have a group called B'nai B'rith, which takes account of all these reports. They do a lot of other things also, but in terms of anti-Semitism, they collect the statistics and then put it in the appropriate places in government circles, where the government then make policies based on those statistics. Also, I found out that the Catholic Church has a monitoring group that monitors all the hate against the Catholicism in Canada and keep statistics and then put them in the appropriate places in the government for policy making. What can the Muslim community is not as united as those like the Catholic Church or as the Jewish community. But in your knowledge, is there a group like that represents the Muslims as a in totality that can collect these statistics, the reportings, and then use them with government to change policies? For example, just this year, maybe 2 months ago, when it was the anniversary of the Afzal family catastrophe, the government of Canada assigned a special person, representative, to deal with Islamophobia. What are your insights in this regard?
Well, I think that's definitely, first of all, a very great step. It's excellent step, and definitely once that representative is in place, Canadian Muslims and organizations, especially and leaders, definitely need to liaise and work very closely with that individual who is going to express our concerns to and relay our concerns to the government on a regular basis. And I think that's a very positive step. My understanding is that National Canadian Council of Muslims, NCCM, has that system of collecting stats and reporting it, of course, to the wider community, but especially to the Canadian government. I think the challenge really comes down to issue of recording and reporting first. And so I think there is at a massive level, need for education in the Canadian Muslim community for recording, ensuring that we record and very importantly, reporting all these hate incidents through whatever mechanisms we have, including NCCM. So yes, I think in my personal view, ideally, if there is a national hotline for Islamophobia, that would be an ideal situation. That would be known to everybody across Canada. God forbid anybody gets attacked or experiences any form of discrimination, they have an easy to remember hotline or phone number to call and simply report without hopefully any stigma, without any hesitation and fear of being, sort of recorded or reported or just having any repercussions, essentially.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you. The last thing, what I would like to say is that call upon the viewers of this program that if you are a Muslim viewer of this program, there is responsibility for you also as an individual, and that is that you become a good ambassador for Islam. The best way to fight also Islamophobia is that every Muslim as an individual is a good ambassador as a community servant, and as well as a good Muslim to show to the rest of Canada that Islam is not the enemy and Islam is not a danger to the society. So while the organizations, we put a lot of responsibility on them, but as individuals also we have this responsibility. And sorry, Brother Taha, that we have just exceeded our half an hour, but I think the the insights that you shared were very important, so I let it pass. Do you have any last word that you want to share with the viewers?
No, thank you, first of all, for this wonderful platform and for that invitation. As you said, I'll just echo what you just said. The responsibility to combat hate really starts with us, and we need to do that in proactive and positive ways. We can become overwhelmed. We can become really bogged down by all sorts of really negative news about Islamophobia locally as well as globally. But it is time for us to ensure that we do our bit and our part to keep fighting Islamophobia through our own personal initiatives first, starting with your own streets, starting with your own community, starting with your own schools, starting with your own workplace, and then inshallah you will see a ripple effect in the long term.
Well, thank you very much. Dear viewers, I just want to acknowledge again that this initiative of the Afghan Association of Ontario to confront racism, discrimination, and Islamophobia, and to increase awareness in Ontario is a program that is carried out in collaboration with the Government of Canada and is partially funded by the Government of Canada. So thank you very much for your time, and Brother Taha, thank you very much for your time also. Our program ends here until next week. We will announce, we will have another expert or a member of the Afghan community who will be sharing their experience with this subject. So thank you until next week.